Lily had always been a dreamer. As a child, she would spend hours gazing out her bedroom window, imagining fantastical worlds and epic romances. Now, at 28, she still held on to those dreams, even as real life proved far less magical than her youthful fantasies. Her job as an accountant was steady but dull. Her tiny apartment was functional but charmless, and her love life was practically non-existent. Lily couldn't remember the last time she'd been on a date, let alone felt that spark of excitement and possibility. So when her best friend Zoe suggested they take a girls' trip to a remote mountain lodge for a long weekend, Lily jumped at the chance. A change of scenery was exactly what she needed to shake off the doldrums and reignite her sense of adventure. As they drove up winding mountain roads, leaving the city far behind, Lily felt her spirits lifting. The crisp autumn air and vibrant foliage awakened something in her that had long lay dormant. By the time they pulled up to the rustic wooden lodge, nestled among towering pines, she was grinning from ear to ear. "This place is amazing!" Lily exclaimed as they lugged their bags inside. The lobby was all exposed beams and stone fireplaces, with cozy seating nooks and expansive windows showcasing breathtaking mountain vistas. "I told you you'd love it," Zoe said with a knowing smile. "Now let's check in and hit the hot tub. I need to soak away the stress of that drive." As they approached the front desk, Lily's eyes were drawn to a striking man unpacking hiking gear nearby. He was tall and lean, with tousled dark hair, and the kind of rugged good looks that seemed perfectly at home in this rustic setting. When he glanced up and met her gaze, Lily felt her breath catch. His eyes were a mesmerizing shade of green, sparkling with warmth and just a hint of mischief. She quickly looked away, flustered by the intensity of her reaction to a complete stranger. But as they finished checking in, she couldn't resist stealing another glance in his direction. To her surprise and delight, she found him looking back at her with obvious interest. "Earth to Lily," Zoe said, waving a hand in front of her face. "You in there?" Lily blinked, tearing her eyes away from the handsome stranger. "Sorry, what?" Zoe smirked. "I said our room is ready, but clearly you found something much more interesting to focus on." Lily felt her cheeks flush. "I don't know what you're talking about," she mumbled unconvincingly. "Uh-huh. Well, Romeo over there is clearly just as intrigued. Why don't you go introduce yourself while I take our bags up?" "What? No, I couldn't possibly," Lily protested. But Zoe was already shoving her in the man's direction. "Go get him, Tiger," she said with a wink before sauntering off toward the elevators. Lily stood frozen for a moment, her heart racing. She couldn't remember the last time she'd approached an attractive man out of the blue. But something about this place, about him, made her want to be bold. Taking a deep breath, she squared her shoulders and walked over. "Hi there," she said, cringing inwardly at how high-pitched her voice sounded. "I'm Lily. I couldn't help but notice all your gear. Are you here to do some hiking?" The man's face lit up with a dazzling smile. "Matthew," he said, extending his hand, "and guilty as charged on the hiking front. I try to get out here at least once a season to tackle some of the trails. You?" Lily shook his hand, trying to ignore the little jolt of electricity she felt at his touch. "Oh, I'm just here for a relaxing weekend with my friend, but I do love a good hike. Any trails you'd recommend for a novice?" They fell into easy conversation, with Matthew enthusiastically describing his favorite local hikes. Lily found herself captivated not just by his obvious passion for the outdoors, but by his quick wit and genuine warmth. Before she knew it, an hour had passed. "Oh gosh, I should probably go find my friend," Lily said reluctantly. "She's probably wondering where I disappeared to." "Of course," Matthew said. "But listen, I'm leading a guided hike tomorrow morning if you and your friend would like to join. Nothing too strenuous, I promise. And the fall colors are really spectacular right now." Lily beamed. "That sounds wonderful. We'll be there." As she headed up to her room, Lily felt a sense of giddy excitement she hadn't experienced in years. There was just something about Matthew that made her feel alive in a way she'd almost forgotten was possible. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. Perfect hiking weather. Lily practically bounced with nervous energy as she and Zoe made their way to the lobby to meet the group. Matthew greeted them with a warm smile that made Lily's heart skip a beat. As he led them up the trail, pointing out interesting flora and sharing bits of local history, Lily found herself hanging on his every word. At one point, as they paused to take in a particularly stunning vista, Matthew came to stand beside her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said softly. Lily nodded, momentarily speechless. But she wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at him, marveling at the way the dappled sunlight played across his features. As if sensing her gaze, Matthew turned to meet her eyes. For a breathless moment, the rest of the world seemed to fall away. Lily felt herself leaning in ever so slightly. "Hey, lovebirds!" Zoe's voice shattered the moment. "You coming or what?" Lily jumped back, mortified, but Matthew just chuckled good-naturedly. "We'd better catch up," he said with a wink. "Wouldn't want to get left behind." The rest of the hike passed in a blur of stolen glances and flirtatious banter. By the time they returned to the lodge, Lily felt like a giddy teenager with her first crush. "So," Zoe said as they headed to their room to freshen up, "when are you seeing him again?" Lily bit her lip. "I don't know if I will. We're leaving tomorrow, remember?" Zoe rolled her eyes. "Please, that man is clearly into you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the feeling is mutual. You'd be crazy not to at least exchange numbers." Lily knew her friend was right, but the thought of putting herself out there, of risking rejection, made her stomach churn with anxiety. It had been so long since she'd opened her heart to anyone. Did she even remember how? That evening, as they relaxed by one of the outdoor fire pits, Lily spotted Matthew across the way. When their eyes met, he smiled and gave a little wave. Before she could overthink it, Lily found herself walking over to join him. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Lily was amazed at how easy it felt, how natural. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt truly seen and understood. As the night grew late and the fire burned low, Matthew turned to her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Lily," he said softly, "I know we've only just met, but I feel like I've known you forever. Please tell me I'm not alone in feeling this connection." Lily's heart soared. "You're not alone," she whispered. Slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, Matthew leaned in. When their lips met, Lily felt as though her whole world had suddenly snapped into vivid Technicolor focus. The kiss was sweet and achingly tender, full of promise and possibility. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Lily knew with absolute certainty that her life would never be the same. But as the initial glow faded, reality came crashing back. "Matthew," she said, fighting back tears, "I'm leaving tomorrow. I live hours away. How can this possibly work?" Matthew took her hands in his gaze steady and sure. "We'll figure it out," he said. "What we have is too special to let distance stand in our way. If you're willing to try, so am I." Lily wanted desperately to believe him, but a lifetime of disappointment and heartbreak made her hesitate. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe we should just cherish this weekend for what it was and leave it at that." Matthew's face fell, but he nodded slowly. "If that's what you want, I'll respect your decision. But Lily, I think we'd both be making a huge mistake if we didn't at least try." With that, he pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead and walked away, leaving Lily alone with her swirling thoughts. She barely slept that night, tossing and turning as she weighed her options. By the time dawn broke, she'd made her decision. As Zoe loaded up the car, Lily raced back inside the lodge. But Matthew was nowhere to be found. With a sinking heart, she realized she'd missed her chance. The drive home was subdued, with Lily lost in melancholy thoughts of what might have been. She'd let fear win out over love, and now she'd have to live with the consequences. Weeks passed, and though Lily tried to throw herself into work and her usual routines, she couldn't shake the lingering sadness. She found herself thinking of Matthew constantly, wondering what he was doing and if he ever thought of her. Then, one rainy Saturday afternoon, as Lily curled up on her couch with a book, there was a knock at her door. Puzzled, she went to answer it, and found herself face to face with a soaking wet, slightly out of breath. "Matthew! Matthew!" she gasped. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" He gave a sheepish grin, I may have sweet-talked the front desk into giving me your address. I hope that's okay. I couldn't stop thinking about you, Lily. I had to see you again. Lily's heart raced. But why? I pushed you away. I was too scared to take a chance. Matthew reached out to cup her cheek. And I understand why. But Lily, what we had, what we could have, it's worth being scared for. It's worth fighting for. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work, if you'll have me. Tears sprang to Lily's eyes as all her doubts and fears melted away. She threw her arms around Matthew's neck, not caring that she was getting soaked in the process. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Their lips met in a kiss that was equal parts passion and promise, washing away the pain of their time apart. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Lily knew with absolute certainty that this was the beginning of something truly magical. In the months and years that followed, Lily and Matthew's love only grew stronger. They weathered the challenges of a long-distance relationship with grace and determination, making the most of every moment they had together. Weekend visits turned into extended stays. They explored new trails and towns, creating a shared map of memories. And with each passing day, Lily felt her world expanding, becoming richer and more vibrant than she ever could have imagined. 2 years to the day after they first met, Matthew brought Lily back to that same mountain lodge. As they stood hand in hand, watching the sun set over the peaks, he dropped to one knee. "Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you've made my life an adventure beyond my wildest dreams. Will you marry me and keep exploring this beautiful world by my side?" Through happy tears, Lily nodded. "Yes," she said. "Always and forever, yes." As Matthew slipped the ring onto her finger, a delicate band inlaid with tiny mountain peaks, Lily marveled at how far she'd come. The shy, cautious woman who'd arrived at this lodge 2 years ago was gone, replaced by someone braver and more open-hearted than she'd ever thought possible. Their wedding the following autumn was a joyous celebration of love and nature. They exchanged vows beneath a canopy of golden leaves, surrounded by friends, family, and the majestic mountains that had brought them together. As they danced under the stars that night, Lily caught Zoe's eye across the room. Her friend raised a glass in a silent toast, her expression saying, "I told you so," louder than words ever could. Lily laughed, filled with gratitude for the push that had changed her life. In the years that followed, Lily and Matthew built a life filled with love, laughter, and endless adventure. They traveled the world, scaling peaks and exploring hidden valleys. But no matter where their wanderlust took them, they always returned to the mountains that had first captured their hearts. They welcomed 2 children, a boy with Matthew's green eyes and a girl with Lily's adventurous spirit. Family hikes became a cherished tradition, with Matthew and Lily delighting in sharing their passion for nature with the next generation. There were challenges, of course, times when the weight of responsibility and the stresses of daily life threatened to dim their spark. But Lily and Matthew faced each obstacle as they had that first daunting mountain trail, hand in hand, one step at a time. And through it all, their love remained as steady and true as the mountains themselves. With each passing year, it only grew deeper, richer, more nuanced, like a fine wine aging to perfection. On their 25th anniversary, Matthew surprised Lily with a return trip to the lodge where it all began. As they retraced the steps of that first hike, now moving a bit slower, but with hearts just as full, Lily marveled at the journey that had brought them to this point. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't come after you that day?" Matthew asked, as they paused to catch their breath. Lily smiled, squeezing his hand. "Sometimes. But then I remember that what we have was always meant to be. If it hadn't happened then, it would have happened some other way. Our paths were destined to cross." Matthew pulled her close, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. "I love you, Lily. Thank you for taking a chance on us." Lily's heart swelled with a love so deep and abiding it took her breath away. "And I love you, Matthew. Thank you for showing me that the greatest adventures begin when we open our hearts." As they continued up the trail, Lily reflected on the incredible life they'd built together. It hadn't always been easy, but it had been beautiful, more magical and fulfilling than even her wildest childhood dreams. She thought of the legacy they were creating, not just in their children, but in the countless lives they'd touched through their environmental work and outdoor education programs. They were leaving the world a little bit better than they'd found it, one trail at a time. And as they crested the final ridge, revealing a vista even more breathtaking than Lily remembered, she knew with absolute certainty that the best was yet to come. Whatever challenges or joys the future held, she and Matthew would face them together, two hearts beating as one, forever wild and free.